Hey everybody, this is Robert Alaniz and this is the Collecting the King Show episode 20. And today's episode, or this episode, is called Back in Memphis. And there's a good reason for that because we just got back from Elvis Week. And a lot of you already know this because I posted a video before saying that Carol and I and Johnny B were going to be there at the show at the Travel Lodge Hotel, which a long time ago used to be the Ramada Inn, which is where we had our very, very first show back in 92 or 91, somewhere around that time period. But anyway, we are back from Memphis, and I wanted to talk about that. So let's get to it. First of all, a reminder, we are looking for subscribers, so if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please hit that subscribe button right now. I appreciate it. Let's start with talking about what it's like, in my opinion, collecting Elvis today compared to maybe the way it used to be. And I'm going to base this on the show. The show this time around was a very good show, by the way. There were a lot of people there. It was the 45th anniversary, and that's why. A lot of foreigners, I believe fans from France, Germany, Brazil, Spain, the Netherlands, Holland, whatever. So there are a lot of fans there and collectors in general. So it was great. And what was really fun was that people were actually coming up to our table because we had a little banner on the front of the boxes of records that said the Collecting the King Show YouTube. And so a lot of people knew where we were, and I can't begin to tell you how many people came up to me and just said, hey, I watch your show all the time, I love it. And it was great because some of these people were from other countries, and it was very, very strange because there was a guy from France who came up to me. He couldn't speak English very well, but he had a woman with him who could. And he said he watched the show all the time in France. And I said, well, how are you able to do that? And, being that it's in English and all. And I guess to show how stupid I am about YouTube, not knowing things, they translate it. So at the bottom there's subtitles, and the translation is in French. So that's kind of cool. In the past, it always seemed to be a lot of older generations that were collecting Elvis. And there's still older collectors there, my age, or, in their 50s and plus. And they were there, of course, and they came and they were looking for their treasures and to complete their collection, that kind of thing. Mostly for me, it was albums. That's really my specialty, as you know if you watch the show, is the LPs, and I sold a lot of LPs. One of the differences was there were younger people this time, and it was great because there were a couple of young girls that came up and was looking through the records and bought 3 or 4 albums. And then just looking around the show, I could tell there were just a bunch of younger people than there normally is. So I think that may have to do with the new movie coming out. A lot of people saw the film and they loved it. So because of that has renewed interest in Elvis Presley and in collecting. But I would say the main difference was a younger crowd. It seemed like younger collectors. But the fever was back. And the fever, I mean, like back, 30th anniversary, way back when. I remember people were always excited to go through the records, and that kind of fever was there again. So I have to say it has to do with the movie, and I think that was pretty important. Well, for me, other dealers had all kinds of different things. I had a lot of records, of course. Albums are my thing. So what was hot was the albums. But what was strange was it was the bootleg albums. I had just bought a bootleg collection from someone, and it was quite big. So big that I couldn't bring it all to Memphis. So I kind of went through and picked out the best stuff that I could. This would include albums like The Hillbilly Cat, which was one of the first bootlegs ever made, America's Own, and Sold Out, stuff like that. It seemed the bootlegs were hot. I mean, they went diving into the boxes and went right after the bootlegs. I sold quite a few. I don't know how many, but these are all vinyl records that came out back in the 80s. And those of you who collect bootlegs know what I'm talking about. But it seemed like the majority of them were the foreigners. Went after the bootlegs. I did sell some to American collectors, but it seemed to be the main interest of the foreigners at the show. So for me, the hot item was the bootleg albums. And then I'd have to say the second most interesting thing or hot item was Colonel Parker. Fortunately, as you know from previous shows, I was able to have access to Al DeVorn's collection, private collection, and itineraries. And of course, there were several things. There were autographed photos of the Colonel that he had given to Al, and different odds and ends of things Colonel Parker related, including birthday party stuff for after Elvis died, where he threw a big party for himself in Las Vegas at the Hilton. Complete with a menu and a photo and all that kind of stuff, souvenir stuff. And it seemed like Colonel stuff was, probably of more interest than I've ever seen it. I did end up selling autographs and various odds and ends of Colonel Parker related stuff, as well as Tom Diskin and Al DeVorn stuff as well. So that was what was hot. It was very strange. After doing shows for, 25 years or better in Memphis, Tennessee, of course, I was the promoter of the show. So I had many responsibilities. I had to make sure the tables were set up, the dealers got what they needed, security was adequate, and all that stuff, plus sell my own stuff. And that was a lot to do. This time it was different because I didn't have to do all of the promoter stuff. I went there just like any other dealer, set up my stuff, and sold just like anybody else. And I have to admit, I liked it. Without all the additional pressure of being responsible for the security and other things with the dealers. It was nice to do a show where all I had to do was go in, set up, and sell. It was enjoyable, and it was pretty much what I thought it was going to be. Much easier than being the promoter. So I really enjoyed that. As I said before, it originally was the Ramada Inn, and it went through many changes. It went from the Ramada Inn to the Clarion. Then after that, it became another couple names, and I don't even remember all the names. But now it was the Travel Lodge Hotel. And this is not a comment about the show. This is a comment about the hotel. Obviously, when we were there, the hotel was going downhill fast. I mean, things... back then in the 90s, early 90s, the hotel was nice. The Ramada Inn was a very nice place. It was owned by a family and run by a guy who had run it for many, many years, and his daughter took over and everything. And it was a nice place. The rooms were nice, and the lobby was nice. There were restaurants, bars. All in all, it was a very nice hotel. And as the years went by, it kind of went downhill. It changed owners, and you know the story from previous videos. We had to move because it was getting to be unreliable. We didn't know if it was even going to be in existence. Seeing it now as it is, as they would say, a former shadow of itself. The lobby was okay. It was nice. But I believe I was told that they have homeless people living on the top floor of the hotel. And every once in a while, you would see them walking through the lobby. There were some security issues. When the show was going, though, during the day, it was okay because there was a lot of people around and there was not any issues. It just seemed like when it got dark out, that's when, the bad people came out. I don't know. But anyway, it was sad to see the hotel the way it is now. And to go into the show and stand in the show behind a table selling stuff, and then and it was almost like a time machine where for a moment I flashed backwards in time, and I remembered standing in that hotel 20 years ago and looking around the room, and there was this kind of bizarre feeling where I thought I had actually traveled back in time and forgot that it was 2022. But then that all changed right away because, then reality would kick back in when certain things would happen that were different from before. And one of them, of course, was me being a dealer. throughout the years in the show, we have seen a lot of strange things throughout the years in Memphis, Tennessee, during Elvis Week. In the very beginning, it was a matter of different personalities of dealers that we met. There was some, fairly well-known dealers at the time who were also book authors, and some of you may already know who I'm talking about. But that person was set up there, and I admired his books. I remember getting his autograph on my copy of the book. And it was kind of funny because he was a celebrity within himself. But it was still Elvis Week, and everybody still focused on Elvis. But it was kind of weird because of all the attention that this guy got, I remember, when we first started. Then as the years went by, strange things would always happen. There was always something happening or somebody that was doing something that was just strange. Well, this year, I got to say, this one kind of takes the cake. And I think it was the 30th anniversary was when Graceland decided to embrace the impersonators. And I remember being disappointed with that because I loved Elvis and I went down there for Elvis, yet I would see billboards with impersonators on the billboards. So I kind of knew what was happening. I knew Graceland eventually decided that they were going to cater to the impersonators because there were people that followed them and went and saw their shows, and then they had a competition, and I think they still have it. I don't know. I didn't pay much attention this time. But I do know there were impersonators because they were walking around the hotel lobby, and they had a little competition at the hotel with impersonators. So there was all that. But folks, I got to tell you, I saw the very first Colonel Parker impersonator. Yes, that's what I said. A Colonel Parker impersonator. I don't think I've ever seen anything more strange in my life. I mean, it's one thing having somebody who's really heavy set and should not be dressed up as Elvis and has fake sideburns walking through a lobby trying to get autographs or offering to give autographs just because he thinks he's Elvis or he's an Elvis impersonator. That's one thing. But when you see a picture of somebody impersonating Colonel Parker, as an Elvis fan, you got to sit there and go, why is this happening? I mean, especially with the movie. I mean, the movie portrayed the Colonel in not such a good light, but then this is nothing new. And I know people argue about it because of the film coming out, and I'll talk about the movie in a minute. But everybody makes a comment about the fact that, well, the Colonel was a big thing in Elvis's life, and if it wasn't for the Colonel, there'd be no Elvis. Well, I'm sorry, folks, but I disagree with that entirely. Elvis was a big star, and he was skyrocketing back then on the Sun label. My opinion is, if there was no Elvis, there'd be no Colonel. The Colonel never would have hit the fame and fortune and the notoriety that he hit, and of course would never have made the money he made if it wasn't for Elvis Presley. Because somebody, come on, somebody, when Elvis was on Sun Records, somebody somewhere in the music industry would have gone up to Presley at some point in time or gone up to Sam Phillips and done the same thing that Colonel Parker did. And Elvis would have been on Columbia Records, or he would have been on Decca Records or something else. But to think that it was just a one-time thing, that the Colonel was the only person that could have done that, I think is giving way too much credit to the Colonel. I think Elvis was hot. He was rising. He was a rising star, and the Colonel jumped on the bandwagon when he saw it happening, and we got what we got. But I certainly don't think Elvis would have been mediocre in any way, shape, or form if the Colonel had not become his manager. Well, for those of you who saw the movie, the whole thing with the Colonel was introduced for the first time to the people who don't already know, like myself. As a manager, he was terrible. As a promoter, he was great. And I had conversations with Sonny West and Joe Esposito and many, many names, and I'm not just name dropping for no reason here. I'm telling you, these were people I talked to who did not like the Colonel. They were not happy with him. Now, oddly enough, Al DeVorn had a very good working relationship with the Colonel, and so did Tom Diskin. And based on all of the stuff that Steve Orlando and I went through recently, the letters and all of the correspondence, you could tell they had a great relationship. So I'm not saying the Colonel was not liked by people. I mean, if you're strictly business, the Colonel was admirable. He was a good businessman. But when it came to Elvis Presley's career, making decisions and moves, he wasn't very good. I mean, he bungled and blew a lot of things, for money and for his own personal gain and maybe Elvis's gain. I don't know. But if you watch the movie, you know what I mean. It's I would say, a fairly accurate interpretation of the Colonel's lack of concern for Elvis Presley, which is what ended up in Elvis's death. So I'm not saying the Colonel killed Elvis, or whatever, but in some ways, like he says in the beginning of the film, I do think that he was the villain of the story, and he still is the villain of the story. So getting back to that, with that all being said, why would you want to impersonate the Colonel? Why? That just doesn't make any sense to me. Complete with cane, complete with Colonel Getup. That had to be the strangest thing I saw in Memphis when I was down there. I couldn't go to a lot of the activities that Grayson had put on. My only disappointment about not going to these events was I didn't get a chance to talk to Ernst Jorgensen or Roger Seaman, who I heard was there. And I always used to love talking to them in Memphis. We would always get together, and Roger would always give me a little hint of what the next FTD CD was going to be, or what the next FTD vinyl was going to be. And of course, right now we don't know. But I really missed the fact that I wasn't able to talk to either one of them. So I didn't get to see that unboxing thing for the Elvis on Tour box set, which is coming up, and I'll talk about that in a minute. There were many viewers of my show, which I'm very, very grateful for, and it was so I guess gratifying that people were actually coming up and saying how much they loved the show. And the big thing that people kept saying to me is, and these are the viewers, all right, the viewers of the show, they kept coming up to me saying, how come you don't have that many subscribers? And I said, hey, you got me. I don't. I just don't know why I don't have that many subscribers. I mean, I see other videos that are other channels, and I'm not putting down any of them. Everybody has got a right to do whatever they want, and some of these channels are great, okay? But all they do is they'll take a record and they'll show it, and they'll say, this is my favorite record, this is why, or they'll do an unboxing, or they'll open the record, which, by the way, I don't think you should open every Elvis record. There are certain ones you just leave sealed. I don't understand, personally, how those type of channels get 2,000 to 3,000 subscribers, and I try to do a show like this, an informative show, and where I only get just under 900. I was very disappointed because I'd like to get to 1,000. And I talked with the people right there at the show, and they were saying, yeah, I don't understand it. I will tell everybody. I tell everybody to go and check it out and this and that. So I don't know the answer, but obviously the show I'm doing is different than what everybody else is doing, and maybe some people like it, maybe some people don't. But I think it's informative, and that was the whole purpose of it to begin with, is to do an informative show for Elvis fans and Elvis collectors, and I think I've done that. So I got my fingers crossed that the people that saw me in Memphis are going to go and talk more about the show, and I'm hoping that you viewers will please hit that subscribe button. I really want to get to 1,000. If I can get to that 1,000, I can do more things with YouTube. So keep that in mind. Some of the collectors, I said, well, what kind of shows would you like to see me do more? And most of them all said, well, I'd like you to do some more vinyl shows. So I've been planning on doing 45s and EPs, bootlegs, of course, and stuff like that. So I think you're going to see a lot of that in upcoming shows. I'm going to get back to some of the vinyl, and we're going to go and talk more about collecting these things like the EPs and such. So definitely going to do more of that. One guy said, you really need more of Johnny B. Really? No, I'm just kidding. John's a very, very good friend, and we have a good camaraderie. And Johnny B will be back. He'll be back on the show. It just took me by surprise when I asked them, I said, well, what do you like? What would you like to see more? I'd like to see more Johnny B. Okay. So, John, get your butt back on the show. All right. We're going to have him back, and we will. That's basically what I had to say about the show, being in Memphis. Overall, it was a good experience. A lot of people, and had a good time. However, I will be completely frank with everybody. I do not foresee me ever going back and doing another show in Memphis ever again. Not because of bad things or bad people or situations, but I just, I think the day has come and gone, and I'm not going to do it anymore. Doesn't mean I won't do other shows in other places, but definitely not in Memphis. Let's move on and let's talk about Elvis on Tour, because that seems to be the big thing everybody was talking about, was the Elvis on Tour release. Sony Legacy announced that they've got a Elvis on Tour box set coming out, and basically it's like a 10 by 10 or 8 by 8, I think it's 10 by 10 box or 9 by 9, but it's going to be 4 rehearsal CDs and 4 concerts. The good news is they're going to be putting back Johnny B. Good, the opening song, into the new version of the Blu-ray. There might be a book or anything, but it is small, and based on that's the way it is, that big box, you would expect that it would be something bigger, but instead it's smaller. But that's fine, because they're doing it commercially, which means it's going to be available in stores and this and that. It's not an FTD release. However, there was a rumor going around Memphis that there will be an FTD release that they're working on, which might include a book and all of the concerts and whatever. There's a rumor that there will be an FTD release in addition to the regular Sony Legacy release. Amiga put out a box set of Elvis on Tour. This is it. And you'll notice it doesn't have a sticker on it or anything. It's still in the shrink wrap. But that's the front of the box, and then here's the back of the box. And it does explain things on the back, like what the contents are. It has a book and all these things. And I got to tell you, I got this in a trade from somebody. And at first, I didn't think anything of it. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool, an Elvis on Tour box. And obviously, this came out prior to what they're going to do with Sony BMG. But I went ahead and got it, and I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to open it and take a look at it and see what's in it. So instead of going into great detail, I do have the book that came inside it right here, and I wanted to show you. This is the book, all right, that comes inside that box. Great picture. I love the blue suit. It's one of my favorite suits. He wore it in Chicago in '72, but I didn't see him when he was wearing it. This is the front of the book, and this is the back of the book, okay? And this is a great package. I mean, this could easily rival Follow That Dream's packaging and stuff, and if they are planning on doing a box set, I hope they do something similar to this. But without going into too much detail, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, this is the inside here, and as you can see, it has 4 CDs in the front cover. Those 4 CDs are all the rehearsals, and then if you go to the back, here are all of the concerts. And then it has this cool, down here it has this cool additional CD that has interviews that they recorded, including a 42-minute interview with Elvis. And it's just, I can't begin to tell you how great this book is, and I don't have the time to show it all to you. But it's got a lot of great pictures, and I noticed a lot of them look like they're from Ed Banja. And I did not look at the credits in the book yet, so I'm not really sure if they are. But either way, this is fantastic, people. If you get a chance to get this, you probably should, because we just don't know what's going to happen with FTD, if they're actually going to do a box or not. If they don't, then this is definitely what you want to get. So that about covers Elvis on Tour. Everybody had these great expectations for this, being that it's the 50th anniversary and all this. And it's nice to see that Sony BMG is going to do something. And it's even greater to see that Amiga had done this box set with the book. But we do have great expectations about that rumor if Follow That Dream is actually going to do their own version of the box or whatever. But we'll see. I mean, it's only a rumor, so we don't know for sure that's going to happen. This is another cool box set that just came out from Music on Vinyl, which is RCA or Sony related. And, I don't have the time to open it up for you, but this is a cool box. I mean, first of all, Music on Vinyl has never done a box set before, let alone do 180-gram vinyls, 4-record set, and on gold and black marble vinyl. But it also includes the book. This just came out like August 12th, and I'm not a big collector of Music on Vinyl, but this was just so cool. When someone said they were going to put this out, I think Friday Music at one time said they were going to put this out, and it never happened. It was on their release list, but it never came out. But they finally did it. They did it. The sticker is cool. I've opened it. My only disappointment is the book. Okay, it comes with the book, which, by the way, should be up here. I got to go this way. Right here in the blank spot, if you know the original release of this, it says includes bonus book or 20-page bonus book or whatever. And for some reason, they made the cover, the reissue cover, where that was excluded from the front cover. I don't know why they did that. It was kind of stupid. But they did put it on the sticker, and they did say that it does have a book and whatever. But I compared this book to the original book, and this just pales so much in comparison. I would take it out and show you, but you probably would not be able to see the quality unless I showed you both books at the same time, which I don't want to spend the time doing that. Anyway, great set though. The colored vinyl is awesome. I have not played it yet. Looking forward to it. But if it's 180-gram vinyl, I'm sure it's going to sound great. So this is the new Music on Vinyl release, which is cool. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, and I don't want to go into this too much, because I've already talked about it a little bit. So let me just say this. I have to make a comment about Elvis, the movie by Baz Luhrmann. There's been so much talk about it. It would be silly for me to go into great detail about how I view the film. But I'm going to give you a summary of my opinion. I did write a review on the movie, and I think I posted it on the Elvis, the Baz Luhrmann Facebook movie site, and explain my view on it. And I don't really have the time to go over it right now and don't want to bore you to death with it. But let me just sum it up by saying this. There was all this big controversy going back and forth about how it wasn't factual, okay? And, there's some different YouTube channeler people that made a big fuss about it, saying, oh, it's not accurate, and, this and that. They skipped a lot of stuff, and they even went as far as to say they were going to make a movie that was going to be better than Baz Luhrmann's movie. Well, let me tell you, as a filmmaker, I've made 10 feature films, low budget. There's no way that they're going to give any amateur who's not a professional filmmaker $85 million to make another movie on Elvis Presley. So put that idea to rest. That's not going to happen. So the people who claim that they're going to make a better movie, forget it. You're not going to make a better movie. You're dreaming. The thing about Baz Luhrmann's film is you have to understand it was told from the perspective of the Colonel, which is debatable, of course, because nobody knows everything about the Colonel. They have different ideas. But here's the thing. The movie was made to entertain. It was made to get a general public, a general audience to watch it and be entertained and learn something about Elvis and maybe the Colonel and the history of rock and roll, or the history of the United States and what we went through in the 60s with the assassinations and all of that. And this was a great vehicle for that to happen. And Baz Luhrmann himself said that he looks more at the movie as a history story than anything else, because it reflects the 60s and the 70s and the 50s very well. And it does touch on a lot of things. And I think personally, as a filmmaker, I think he did a brilliant job of making this film. It's not completely factual, but he used facts to make the film entertaining. every good movie has a hero, a villain. There has to be conflict. It has to be resolved at some point. And this movie has all that. And it was brilliant for him to start it all off by having Tom Hanks start off by saying, some people here thinks I'm the villain of the story. So bingo, he establishes the villain of the story right away. We know the hero is Elvis. We witness his rise through fame. We witness all of the stuff that happened in the United States at the time. And we eventually see his demise because of the greed of Colonel Parker, which is, again, why I don't understand why anybody would want to impersonate Colonel Parker. Colonel Parker was maybe a brilliant businessman, and I'm talking way back when, even when Elvis was alive. And I remember as a fan back in the 60s and 70s, when I heard about the Colonel, nobody liked him. There was nobody said, oh, Colonel Parker's the greatest this or that. Nobody said nothing like that. Everybody would talk about how he treated Elvis and the opportunities that he blew for Elvis Presley. So why anybody would think he's such a great guy, I don't know. But anyway, the movie was told from his perspective, which is why a lot of things weren't included, like the Army years, because the Colonel wasn't there, the movie years, because the Colonel wasn't there much. But it did focus on all of the elements in the times of history that Elvis was involved with the Colonel, and the Colonel had some interplay. So Baz Luhrmann used different things to make the movie exciting and make people like it. Let's face it, Elvis never recorded Trouble, until he shot King Creole in 1958. He could have done that because that song hadn't been recorded yet. But the whole thing wasn't it great? I mean, Elvis singing Trouble, you're looking for trouble. I mean, it was a great moment. Baz Luhrmann had to sit there and go, well, I don't know. We've already done Good Rockin' Tonight. We've already done, these other songs. What song would really fire up the Colonel? What would be dramatic? What would be a great dramatic song? And it was Trouble. And you have to admit, it was awesome. The way he constructed the whole story behind the 68 comeback. Of course it wasn't accurate, but it was fun. I mean, the Colonel trying to impress singer sewing centers or the executives, and then, Bobby Kennedy being shot. And even though these events were not in order, they added to the magnitude or the magnificence of the If I Can Dream segment. When you hear that music after Elvis is walking up and he's supposed to sing Here Comes Santa Claus, instead he sings If I Can Dream. The minute it was over, people burst into applause in the theater. And I know people who watched that movie, that moment is huge. It was great. It was great. It almost brought tears to my eyes. And of course, the end of the movie did bring tears to my eyes because we all lost Elvis and we don't know why. But, there's some implications as to why Elvis drove himself to his demise. And it could have been the Colonel. I mean, it could have been the situation where the Colonel said, look, if you don't do this, you're going to lose Graceland, you're going to lose this. I mean, he had a hold on Vernon Presley. We all know that. And he also had a hold. Vernon, of course, was Elvis's father, and Vernon influenced Elvis. And Elvis was taking the medications and stuff for the touring. And let's just face it, it all happened. It all went wrong, and it went wrong fast. And the Colonel could have stopped it, but he didn't. He kept pushing Elvis to just do his thing, and that's one of the ways we lost Elvis. So I'm not saying the Colonel killed him, but he certainly didn't help matters in the end. So as a film, I thought the movie was fantastic. It was everything I had hoped it would be, and I think based on the fact that it's done $262 million worldwide, I think the proof's in the pudding, okay? It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely go see it. Let's talk about the soundtrack. I don't know where to begin. First of all, I understand the director and I understand marketing because I make films and I had to market my own movies, and I have distributors that market my films. So I understand marketing. And of course, the whole idea with this was to get music in there that younger people would appreciate. Okay? But correct me if I'm wrong, isn't Eminem a has-been? I mean, has he done anything? I mean, I don't keep track of rap music at all. But, I mean, I don't hear much about him doing anything except, on the Super Bowl or whatever he was on, and that was That was a disaster from what I heard. I didn't watch it. But Eminem, the guy who claimed when he first got famous, he claimed that he was the next Elvis Presley. Come on. Well, I guess they had to put him on there. I don't know why they put him on there, but they did. And of course, the song is called "The King and I," as if Eminem could ever be close to Elvis Presley as far as being the king of anything. He's not even the king of rap, from what I understand. But anyway, I'm not through with the rap music. I don't think it's great. I do like some of the mixes in here. I definitely like "Don't Fly Away," which I heard is a big dance hit in the clubs in Europe. I do like some of the other mixes that they did. Craw Fever is very interesting, where they mixed four of Elvis's songs together so beautifully, it becomes its own song. But I have a major complaint, and I heard other YouTube channels say the same thing. Why in the world would you not put "If I Can Dream" by Elvis Presley on here? Why would you put it? Why would somebody else be singing it? It was the highlight of the movie. You have to have Elvis singing "If I Can Dream." There's another big moment in the movie where he sings a song that should be on the soundtrack. But the big thing is "If I Can Dream." Why is that not on here? It should be on here because it was the big moment in the movie, and it should be on here. So basically, it's okay. It's not a great CD, but it's interesting. The mixes are fun. I do like some of the individual performances by the other artists, not the rappers, but the ones who actually sing. Very tragic about the woman the performer who did Hound Dog. Apparently she passed away. Very sad, but I liked her version of that. So overall, I would say I would give it maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe a 6 is what I would say. There's rumors that there will be a vinyl coming out of this, and there's also rumor that there may be a deluxe edition of this CD coming out, which will have all of the music on it, maybe "If I Can Dream" as well, and the songs that were offered to download when this thing first came out, or when they first announced it being out. You could actually download the soundtrack, and it had 36 recordings, or 36 songs versus 20. Was it 22? Yeah, 22 here. So that's my review on that. My final thoughts on Graceland and the future of Elvis Week and the future of collecting. I don't think collecting Elvis is ever going to stop. I think thanks to the movie, it's going to bring out new collectors. I think things are going to be questioned and talked about a lot more than they used to be. Elvis's sales, from what I understand, on different platforms where you can order music or buy music, I hear all those sales have gone up. So there's definitely a big interest thanks to the film. So we're grateful. Elvis fans and collectors can be grateful for that, because that means collecting will continue and people will continue to do it. And then as far as Elvis Week, I don't know how long Elvis Week is going to last. I mean, based on what I saw, it did not look good. We're on the 45th anniversary, and it wasn't all that great. The attendance in the show was good, but I don't know what their numbers were, but I just don't think it was what it used to be. And of course, now they have these things with financial issues, with bonds or whatever, that I don't understand, which is causing trouble for them financially. I don't know. I think it'll make it to the 50th, and I think that might be it, unless this movie can generate enough young people to keep that thing alive. But they're going to have to make some changes over there. There's no way during Elvis Week you should be closing your doors, all the stores and everything, down at 5 or 6 o'clock. I mean, people fly in, they're there for Elvis Week. All of those shops, everything should be open until 10 o'clock at least. And they're going to have to make some serious changes and start paying attention to the people that are buying things and paying money, because if they don't, they're going to lose it. So coming up next, as I close out, I'm going to show you a montage of photos that we took at the show. So make sure you watch it all the way to the end and see if you are included. We had many, many collectors and fans come up and take pictures with us, including Cynthia Pepper from Kissin' Cousins and a few other people. And maybe you're in there. So that's coming up right at the end of this. And I want to thank all of the people that watch the show for watching. So don't forget to send me your inquiries and want lists to collectingtheking@gmail.com. for pricing, shipping, and payment details. We have over 1,000 Elvis 45 CDs and LPs in stock, as well as RCA promotional items, sheet music, authentic Las Vegas and tour souvenirs, and more. We don't have a list or catalog available, which is why we encourage you to send inquiries and want lists. If we don't have something you're looking for, we might be able to find it for you. So don't forget to contact us at collectingtheking@gmail.com. So thanks again, everybody, for watching the show. And I don't know what else to say except thank you, Carol, for running the camera again. Michael's not here. And everybody, take care of business. And I'm out of here.